Okay, so now it is, I'm pretty sure it's April 20th of 2023. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I'm going to do a sit-down video here. Oh my lord. And, I can rest my eyes for a minute, because I'm blaring on the computer with my one-eye glass. You can see that, right? This is the British Columbia Canadian healthcare system. You get what they pay for, and if it's not time to pay for it, you don't get it. Let's just put it that way. So you learn to adapt. Yeah, it's the 20th, okay? So, I'm going to put the title on this one. Oh my lord, I should have wrote it down. Oh, what was I thinking? Already slipped my mind. I've got extra cheesy cheddar Alfredo sauce that I need to convert over and upload, and then, but I want to do this first because I already cleared out my computer. I've been working on this computer for well over an hour and a half, frying out my eyes, transferring files onto an external hard drive so that I can continue to do these videos. Because, you know, for some people, okay, we're dealing with two different groups here, okay? We've got the naysayers and the ones that say yay. We've got the good gals and guys, and we've got the bad gals and guys, right? It's one or the other, all right? And right now, I feel like I'm on the fence. I don't want to say a witch fest, but I'm around a lot of women. I'm just saying. And to which brings me to this video where I think we need to discuss women's issues. Not the transgender issues, not the gay issues, just whatever, the binary, whatever people want to be these days, you know, the ones that think they're cats and they're babies and, or whatever. Like, there's just a lot of, I don't know, out of touch of reality, you know, when it comes to people's mindsets. Regardless, stay focused. So only women bleed. Okay? Only women bleed. We bleed for a reason. And it's more than just to pass an egg that's past its due date. Okay? And we bleed for different reasons, you know? And so with that said, and with what I'm going into with Amari, right? Because this is what this is going to be about. I'm dealing with a female lawyer, right? You know, obviously, anytime I do anything in the kitchen, is, you know, I don't want to say men aren't in the kitchen, because we've got some really good guys out there that are really good cooks, right? But, you know, from where I stand, my friends mainly that watch my videos are women. And they pick up little tidbits here and little tidbits there in terms of information, right? So that kind of bonds us together. We're just a bunch of bitches in the kitchen, right? Learning to get along. You see, that's the thing, right? Right? Okay? And then, all right, stay focused. I'm trying to be diplomatic here, because I'm going into a diplomatic situation with this lawyer. And, you know, I'm oh my Lord, I'm full of emotions right now, because I got pressure now, right, to hand over this paperwork before I'm even ready to hand it over. because it wants to be determined as to whether there's suspect to Amari being injured at the time of his birth or absolutely not, because the medical files say so. Because the medical files say so. When we all know that the story is a whole lot deeper than just quote-unquote the medical files. Okay? We have to look at the motive as to why Amari was injured. We have to look at the method as to why Amari was injured. Whereas this lawyer, currently, I've only had one conversation with her, people, and I'm already conversing through email with her paralegal, right, to start facilitating paperwork so that she can further read to determine if there's anything in the medical files to suggest that there was medical negligence, which leads into other things, okay? And she's very aloof to the emotional part that's attached to that. Cats. Oh my Lord. My black cats don't like Wonder Cat, who we are starting to really seriously think was abandoned by whatever means. He's a homeless cat. He lives on my doorstep, literally. Apparently, Andre said he came in the other day and was laying around on the floor, and then he wandered back out. But I don't like him too much in the house because he sprays. But last time he was in, which was just like 2 days ago, he didn't spray. So, but he's always on my doorstep. But the black cats, Little Black Lily and Sky, they don't really like him. Little Mo doesn't care. And, you know, Mickey, she puts up with any animal that comes into the house, right? She's pretty good, so. But yeah, the black ones, they're always fighting with him. But he won't go away. He just refuses. And Little Mo is pregnant by him. So that should be interesting to see what happens. And then after she's had her kittens, I'm just going to get her fixed at about 7-8 weeks. And by then, who knows, right? Because they get pregnant so fast. So fast. But I want the kittens to be able to have, you know, a fair amount of milk, right? So, either or. I feed these cats. And they scrap. Because they're territorial, right? Not all cats are friendly. Just like not all humans are friendly. Okay, so let's get on with this. So she's not emotionally attached to it like I am, and she wouldn't coming fresh, which is perfect. That's what we need, is a fresh mind, and one that's alert and knows what to look for, right? But then on the other hand, you know, there's going to be things in there that are very, very subtle. That's a build-up to that reasoning as to why it happened. And the method that it took to get there for it to happen. 5 days in labor, sent home 2 times with morphine, right? Come back, they keep her. Now they've got her going in labor for another 10, 12 hours or whatever. Tisha said it was a long time. Okay, so that's, you know, 5 days of labor, right? And it just goes straight into an emergency C-section. Point is, it took 5 days. They turned her away 2 times, and they gave her morphine to hide the pain, so that if it got real bad, she wouldn't know, being that she was an inexperienced mother, because she never gave actual birth before, so she wouldn't know what to expect. That in itself is negligent. Where I'm afraid this lawyer is just looking for the documented proof where somebody within that group of nurses and doctors and whoever signs these forms and does these little updates was 100% honest in the results of what they were reporting on. In other words, there is absolutely no falsified numbers to suggest that there was anything wrong with Amari outside of he was jittery and the doctor followed protocol and sent him for a pee test. And then they monitored his blood sugar or something. And they released him within 3 days, even though he was jittery. But they smoothed it over by suggesting that somehow it kind of went away, but it never did, people. Anyway, it's in my best interest to know what I'm sending this woman, especially in the first initial stages. Right? Because, it's just the right thing to do. But I feel like I'm under a lot of pressure because, you know, she's aggressive. I want them now. Well, I wasn't prepared for this. I was going to give myself 1 year to gather everything up so it was concise and in order and explained itself as you went from page to page to binder, because I don't want her to miss those subtle little clues where it builds up to the fact that my grandson was targeted before he was even born. That's the part I don't want her to miss. However, if she tells me that in black and white, which I'm going to talk about this in a second here, that it says right here on this paper as a medical record at this time and date, that it specifically shows that Amari's frontal lobe all up in here, it's a big, I know they said it's a lot, all this all up in here has been severely damaged. Well, probably from contractions pushing on his head as his choking, because, right? I mean, who wouldn't, right? It's not over here, it's not over here. I remember the doctor saying it's all up in here. Or was that ShaMay's brain that died when they were having her on that table hooked up to their embalming machine to make it look like she was alive? And they did their funky brain scan to prove that she was brain dead and that it was leaking through her, what is that called, spinal cord down into whatever. Yeah, okay. I'm just saying. Hold on a minute. Well, no, he's okay. He's not, I just gave him a bottle, so it's the moving part that I'm worried about, right? Because he's fast and poop. Okay. So anyway, I can't clear off my sewing table. It's just, so I'm going to have to work in War Room 3. There's actually 4 rooms, 4 war rooms. My bedroom, which is the original war room, that's always going to be the original because it started with Sierra and Andre more than anything, at least in this house. War Room 1, where the tomato plants are now, went on to Uncle John, right? And then with that spilling into my sewing room, which became War Room 2, right? Then ShaMay's stuff ended up taking over the table, and I've got binders like this full, okay? Her medical files are like this, okay? And that's basically just for the 2 issues in terms of birthing Amari and when she was dead. They made a lot of money off of her dead body in those 9 days that they had it hooked up on a machine, because the majority of her medical files is that, people. Let that lawyer read that one. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're focusing on Amari in his little quote-unquote Judge Ross's silo. I don't want this lawyer to put Amari into a silo right along with Judge Ross and tuck him away like a dirty secret because of the larger agenda that allows our healthcare professionals to target children whether at birth, before birth, or after birth, okay? And some of that shit is going on. I know for sure in the province of British Columbia, Canada, without due acknowledgement to make a wrong right. For those parents that are suffering at the hands of negligent and mischievous healthcare professionals. So we got the War Room 2, right? And then this became a War Room 3. But this has always been my office. So before I really get too deep into this, I should say, again, this wouldn't be the first time, welcome to my office. Right? This is what professional people like lawyers don't understand. I don't have the convenience of having a beautiful desk with a lot of room, everything nicely and ordered, and some help. So basically, I kind of have to just sift through all this by myself, and yeah. And I don't want to feel bad for not getting it to her in a timely manner. But I would rather have it to her where it's self-explanatory with key pages highlighted in terms of that subtle misinformation, perhaps a falsified file, perhaps you know, that kind of thing, right? And I know how I'm going to do it. As I go through the binder and I have my sticky tabs versus rewriting out, which would be really hard for me to do, never mind try and read the sticky tab. We're talking fine print on dark blue paper, as if I can see that with anything that I have in terms of glasses right now. Yeah, good luck. I'll be like, but once I do know what it says in terms of date and just general info as to what those papers represent, I can simply type it down, and I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way until whatever binder I'm working on till the end, for the most part, right? And just sticky tape in between 1, 2, 3, 4, so she can go to number whatever, right, and make reference to whatever it is that I type. Versus sticky tape with writing, okay? I just simplify it better for her. And this way, then when it goes to her, I know exactly what she got. So if she comes to me and say, well, are you familiar with this? I'll be like, well, no, because there are some things that are missing. I have a few pieces of paper of ShaMay's, right? A few, right? With that social worker shit. With when that cop tried to suggest that ShaMay killed herself, and he pulled out some social worker shit from when she was 17. I probably plucked that out, so I was going to maybe insert it in when I was doing the lawsuit, against the Attorney General. Who knows? I just know that there's a couple of miscellaneous of those kinds of papers somewhere in all these freaking papers. Not that it's pertinent, per se, to a medical injury in black and white in the physiological sense. But when you look at the larger picture, it didn't start and stop with Amari. It started before Amari. It went to Amari. It continued on with ShaMay, because she's dead now. Right? And, well, we don't know what's coming next, people, because, they like to take their little breaks and plot and scheme and figure out the best mode of attack before they come in and snipe you out over there. Right? Well, actually, you could almost say it was me. I was next, because now I'm practically blind. Because of not being able to get a referral to see an eye specialist, because that was the only place I could get eye drops. So they took me out by depriving me of eye drops, by making it so difficult for me to be able to see anybody that could give me a referral for an eye specialist, including my own family doctor, because of stupidity. Yeah. So I've decided to I only have the ham and the bacon that really need to be canned the most. The ham hock especially. The bacon can sit, but I'm going to just do them all at the same time. And then after the fact, because I like the way the ham hocks turning out, in 6 months, 7 months, whenever, I'll have Tisha take me out shopping somewhere, and I'll splurge and I'll spend $200 on ham hock, and I'm gonna can them up in 1 liter size jars. But for now, I'm just gonna do what I got and be done with it, and not worry about peaches and blah and blah. Right? What I'm gonna do as a mode of attack here. Yeah, I love you. Is basically get some boxes, because that's how I do it. Sit there, start grabbing, sort out into separate boxes, label in big, bold black ink, right? And look for anything that I think I need for this woman, right? And make myself a workspace. That's what I need to do here. Okay? And because I've got a computer here, I got this computer. I don't really use this one right now because it needs to go to the computer guy. I've got that one over there if I need it, right? And I can pull up, you know, like there's like the videos that I have of ShaMay at the time of Amari when he was born, as they're cleaning him up. Because he came out jittery. That's visualization of documented proof. And I am sending her Andre's medical files, to which I have not read yet. So they're in the original form. So I will just photocopy them and give her a straight up copy as is. And that's a comparison to Amari in terms of you're dealing with a family that's been targeted with daughters and sons and grandchildren and the elderly, okay? So it makes it a whole family to where you have to look at how they are treated as individuals within the healthcare system that may or may not affect the children coming as being born adversely. Okay? Like, for example, I'll give you one example here. When Tisha had Alea May, it was kind of under an emergency situation, people, to which I myself personally believe was instigated by Fraser Health Authority staff. Hold on a minute. In a nutshell, she was coming to her due date, and they booked her in at the different, not at the hospital, but at a different medical facility. I don't know if it was to check the heart. I think it was just to check the heart rate or something. Or maybe, the amount of fluid, because she was like at her due date, right? Pretty much, right? And it was just a follow-up because, I don't know. Yeah, it was just a follow-up. Anyway, they did their test, assuming it was, like, checking the baby's heart rate before, right? They did their test, and all of a sudden, a little AMA, all of a sudden, out of the blue, came into under distress, right? And apparently she pooped herself. And because she became under distress, I can't remember exactly. I'll ask Tisha. She pooped herself, and because she did that, they booked Tisha in for an emergency C-section. They took her from that medical center straight to the hospital and gave her a C-section. Honestly, this lawyer should be looking at those medical files too. That's 3 daughters having a C-section, to which I find to be very unusual, considering I had 5 live births through vagina. Okay? The one that really needed it in terms of like ShaMay didn't get it until the very bitter end, and by then it was too late. Tisha, in my opinion, knowing what I know and what I've been through, and just how fast and sudden and convenient it was for them to book in their emergency C-section for a simple follow-up test to make sure that the baby was progressing correctly. Because without that test, there wouldn't have been that distress to where May pooped herself. So, and we know that electromagnetic fields, energy, can provoke a lot of things. So, I'm just saying, right? That's what I mean by looking for patterns. So, with the fact that Sierra was the one that was the addict, okay? There's no disputing that, okay? There's no shame to it either, because she's not the only one out there struggling with this issue. Okay? And so many individuals are not getting the help that they need. All right, regardless. Andre was born, and any quote-unquote health issues that he had, namely, if not all of that, was related to the methadone, because they weaned him off the methadone, people. They weaned him off the methadone, which was affecting his heat regulation. Okay? Now, I have not read his medical files, but that's what we were told. And they kept him for 2 weeks to ensure that by the time he got home, he could regulate his body temperature, and he was off of methadone and everything else. Okay? You see Andre, you running around. Okay? Strong, healthy, right? Can be a little whippersnapper when he wants. Sure, he struggles with reading and writing and doesn't like to, you know, apply himself academically, but not every kid is the same, and you know, even it doesn't matter, right? It's always a hit, and plus, you know, his mother, some of it may be like genetic in terms of his mother seems to have had the same kind of learning, a quote-unquote disability, where he doesn't interpret letters as well as perhaps other people. I mean, there's lots of variables in there, but either or, he's nothing like Amari. When we all know that Sierra was the addict to multiple types of different types of drugs. Not just a singular drug, people. Because if they can't get the heroin, then they'll settle for the methamphetamine. I'm just saying. If they can't get the heroin and the methamphetamine, and they come across the crack cocaine because they're poor and that's what's out in the streets, not so much cocaine per se as it is crack cocaine, which is worse on fetuses than cocaine. Okay? They're gonna do that. So who knows what Sierra was doing for the first 3 months and a bit of her pregnancy until she finally got on that methadone. She was probably doing a little bit of everything, but namely heroin, which has the least physiological damage when it comes to like a cleft lip, like women that do crack cocaine. Their babies will sometimes more often come out with cleft lips, right? Or other issues because I guess of the baking soda or whatever they cut it with. I don't know. I just know that that's worse than quote-unquote cocaine, right? And heroin, you know, I mean, millions of babies are born to heroin addicts in these developing countries, right? Because they don't have quote-unquote health care to give them methadone, right? When in the 80s, when in the United States of America, and they all of a sudden had all these drug babies flooding the healthcare system within the inner cities, right? Those were all crack babies. And crack babies, you know, that's what that was, people. It was the drug itself that was creating the birth defects. Okay. The point is, stay focused. The point is, Sierra was the addict. And whatever symptoms Andre was going through or was documented at that time, being that it relates to ShaMay in a roundabout way, in more ways than one, that directly relate to Amari, it's important that this woman has a comparison, not only as a whole to the family, as to how the family as individuals are being and have been targeted through a concession of years, but also the more that the good guys and gals can support the good guys and gals and give them the resources that they need in order to better hone in on their own skills, so that whatever it is that they do on a professional level, on a charitable level, or whatever level that they do it on with goodwill and good intent, they can do a better job. Right? Withholding Andre's medical files as a comparison to how the family is being treated, and really she should look at little Alea May's medical files to determine what sparked that, where Alea May went into distress and suddenly, out of the blue, while Tisha was laying on a fucking table, pooped herself. It probably had something to come in relation to the machine that they were using to monitor whatever it was that they were monitoring. And then you have a pattern. Sierra, ShaMay, and Amari. No. It went Sierra, ShaMay, Tisha. Andre, Amari, Alea May. But Tisha doesn't want to stir that pot, because she's fed up with me stirring my pot. Right? And she's quite still in awe as to whether this lawyer will truly manifest and be a justice warrior for Amari. Right? Oh my God. But this is all to do with women's issues. You know, it is. Only women bleed. And, you know, what was it, a year or two ago, you know, when they came in with these inoculations and women lined up in droves to take them, and then all of a sudden in one day, now we're going up Liberty Talk News Odessa and Laura Lynn Thompson's alley, where they talk about stuff like this. And they do interviews with people that confirm that this is true information, where there was something like 13 babies or something like that that were all born, stillborn in one day in British Columbia, Canada. And somebody caught wind of it, got the information and documented it, and it just became one big kerfuffle because the government tried to, you know, mask it over as if a person was an idiot and didn't know what they were talking about, even though they had, you know, they were a doctor, some kind of doctors that know how to interpret medical files, right? And even when the pattern is right there, you're still battling. Because the government hopes that those files will get buried between another 20,000 at the bottom of the pile, and you'll never find it. Yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, I can't get bent out of shape here. I feel that this is a very important woman's issue because we're dealing with our children and our grandkids, right? And I'm not, you know, I'm wounded, you know, and I'm jaded and I'm suspicious, but I'm motivated to follow up on this right? Because I don't want to be sitting here in 3 years from now talking about the same old, same old. I want resolution. And where there's a wrong, there needs to be a right. And if I'm wrong, then they need to prove to me 100% that I'm wrong. The burden of proof is on them to prove that I am wrong. Just like with the murder of my daughters, right? They don't see it that way because it's easy for them with their trickery, with their MS team court proceedings, right? Am I going to be doing MS team in a court of appeals on my Windows 7? Seriously, with 3 judges that are going to sit there and toss out the rest of my family, excluding Amari, into their garbage bin because they don't want to deal with the corruption with the lower courts when it comes to the masters, the justices, and the judges? I'm just saying. They have to prove to me that my daughters weren't murdered and that they had their organs harvested illegally, as the cops and coroner's office and healthcare staff and so on weren't trying to cover up their tracks. Just like they have to prove to me that Amari's frontal lobe damage, when you're having contractions, what happens? The baby's head is being pushed. It comes through the birth canal, assuming it can get past it. Obviously, 5 days in labor, it couldn't pass ShaMay's birth canal now, could it? No. So it kept that pressure there. And then eventually, something happened where the umbilical cord just squeezed what little breath was left in Amari and smothered him. Then they did their C-section. Yeah. That's a woman's issue. Only women go through that kind of stuff. Okay, just remember that. So I'm going to get a couple of boxes. And I'm just going to clear out as fast as I can in here. And pick through it a little bit before I stuff it in another box. Give myself a workspace here, because this is War Room 3. And, you know, Amari's is easy enough to do. So is Andre's, right? I could have Amari's and Andre's sent to her, like, within 3 or 4 days, easy peasy, if she'd like to take it that way. ShaMay's medical files, a little more complicated, because it's bigger. I want her to have from the beginning to the last freaking page when they cut off their machine. If she's brave, she'll keep reading in terms of what happened to ShaMay's body as soon as they got it. But she's not required to. But the information is there because when it goes to court, they're going to ask what happened to the mother. And I would suspect this woman would tell the truth. Right? Well, I wanted to say other things, but I forgot already because I'm too emotional with all this stuff. Right? I have to get into the yard next week, too. So at least I have a motive, a plan here. Right? Clear this all out, clear off this, clear this out, somewhat get it a little more organized, keep looking for the few papers that I need, and as I go through this stuff quickly, look for what I need, and log it down, get a copy, send it out to her, and then just leave it and see what happens. Right? Because you know I'll follow up. Unless somebody can convince me otherwise, I will follow up on my own if I have to. If I have to. Don't know if I'll be able to, but I'd like to think I could. Right? I was going to give some play to this troll that comes in with their fake user accounts every 2 months or whatever, and make comment on it. But I copy and I paste them in. I'm tired, eh? You don't even know. Okay, troll alert. Let's just read it. Let's just read it and we'll end it on this. So it was under the title video, like a wild thing. Busy, busy, April 19th of 2023. Okay, troll alert, aka Tamika Johnson. Coming in with some name called Sam Dould. I don't want to rain on your parade, but you know this lawyer will investigate everything about you, right? Ooh. There's that witching hour. Ooh. She will also go through all the hospital records from your daughter, and she'll find out about her drug use and that Amari is a drug baby. First of all, she's going to have to dig a little more deeper than just the hospital records. We already discussed that. No shame to our game. Okay, this is a woman's issue. This is an attack on women and children from an entity that is, quote unquote, trying to depopulate the planet as they harvest us through their loosh technique. Okay? Some people just simply like to call it, what is that called? You know, never mind. Stick to the material facts. This is where lawyers are really good. They know exactly what a material fact is. Okay. And you said on a past videos that the doctors, so quote unquote more than one, told you ShaMay was on drugs before Amari was born. That's why he is the way he is. Well, of course, none of those doctors want to take any responsibility for their negligence. And if they did it with intent to be malicious or to be mischievous or for personal gain, to which I do believe that's why they do it, because there's some sort of syndicate involved here in terms of that organized crime that goes in partnership with organized religion for profit. Of course, they're going to point the finger at ShaMay. And why do you think I sit here today in War Room 3? Nothing new. But you told this lawyer the doctors never told you the MRI never showed he was a drug baby. Laughing out loud. Okay. What I said is no doctor has ever specifically said that the reason Amari is the reason is because the physical, visual interpretation of the MRI confirms that it resulted from a particular drug. And if there's more than one drug that can create that kind of cause and effect in terms of physical damage to that part of the brain, then be specific as to what those drugs were, and then pull up ShaMay's medical files where they need to be found and compare and see if she was prescribed those medications, because those would be more than likely prescription medications in terms of maybe, I don't know, sleeping pills. Didn't the doctor prescribe her sleeping pills when she was pregnant? She said she didn't take them. I asked her not to take them. Whether she took them or not, or even filled out the prescription, I don't know. The question should be, why is a doctor prescribing sleeping pills to a pregnant woman that clearly is under distress because she can't sleep? And through her medical file, you would clearly see that she was struggling to keep the baby initially based on her past previous abortions and her current situation. But she chose to keep the baby. And even then, a month or two or whatever it was, the doctor is prescribing sleeping pills. Sounds kind of suspicious to me. That's like giving her morphine while she's in pain and sending her home so the morphine masks the contractions. And let me tell you something. Now, yes, I already birthed 4 children. Three. It can, you know what? It doesn't matter. For some women, it can happen fast. You see, this is the thing about women. We are made a certain kind of way where our hips are designed to accommodate a baby coming out from between them. Okay? When ShaMay came into the world, or was about to, she was my 4th baby. Okay? I already told you, I was working on orders for a whole bunch of dancers. So I was sewing, and getting an order ready, going up and down the bird stairs with my, right? Came home, sewing, whatever, went upstairs. It was a Friday night. I remember. It was a Friday night, and I was working on an order, right? I had to go see them on a Saturday. Anyway, went upstairs, was in the kitchen with John, leaning up against something, you know, whatever. He's there, we're talking. It was going on midnight, around that time. And all of a sudden, because prior to that, I was getting little, just fluffers, you know, those mild contractions, just something to indicate that maybe, but nothing, you know, I already had 3, so this was mild, right? And I was sewing and working, right? And she was 1 week early, right? And most of my, well, all my babies so far had been 2 weeks early, right? And yeah, so I'm just running through the kids here, right? And so anyway, standing there, we were talking, and then all of a sudden, it happened in a blink of an eye. I was standing there, right? We were talking, whatever, and then what happened was it just went like my, you know, pelvis. It just went, I felt it, people. And I don't know, I guess ShaMay dropped. It broke my water. Next thing you know it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, John, you know, Crumb, like, go get me a towel. I'm like leaking all over the place, and all of a sudden it like, oh, okay, so I guess this is it, John. We need to load the kids up in the car. So now we're laughing, right? And we're loading up the kids in the car as I'm running around with the towel between my legs. I drive old Betsy to my neighbor's house with the kids in between labor as I got a towel between my legs, right? Get home, we call a taxi, Punjabi saying, don't have baby in taxi. We're all laughing. It all happened like in 3 hours, just from the moment it went. I don't even think ShaMay cervixed even though she was under a lot of pain. So, like, that's dangerous, giving mothers, new mothers especially, any mother, morphine and sending them home to mask labor pains. If you wanted to drag out labor and damage the baby with the hope that somehow, some way, the result will be like Amari because of the umbilical cord stuck around his neck and his head stuck in the birth canal because it can't, right? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Only women can go, but sometimes some of us can't. And I would think that if you've had multiple abortions, somehow, some way, that could affect your cervix from ever being able to do that. Just like when they gave me that oxytocin with Tisha and overdosed me with that new and approved Chinese nurse that wanted to show who was boss and overdosed me with the oxytocin to the point where I was heaving off the table, and by the time Tisha almost flew out of my vagina, I was half hanging off with a whole bunch of people hanging on to me. That's how violent my freaking whatever it was that they gave me made me do. And then I go years later, after I basically felt like for a whole year that my back was broken after the fact, but I ignored it because I wanted to stay the fuck away from the healthcare system. God forbid, as if I'm going to go back and ask him why my back is so sore. But over a year or so, got a little better. I went for one of those pap smears or whatever. Doctor told me my uterus was tilted. And then I'm like, wow, no wonder why it hurts to have sex now, because my uterus is tilted. And where did that come from? Well, it came from that bitch nurse that overdosed me with that oxytocin to make me go flying off the fucking table. Well, she's holding Tisha, pushing Tisha's head in my vagina, screaming at me not to push as I'm heaving because it's pushing it out. Like it's bullshit, people. Fucking bullshit. It's all bullshit. Fucking Surrey Memorial Hospital is full of fucking nothing but fucking bullshit. I got my own fucking stories around it. So yeah, ShaMay's cervix probably couldn't go open up. Is the lawyer going to investigate that? I don't know. I hope so. She seems to think that if a woman has multiple abortions and is having a difficult giving birth, if it was related to the abortion act itself in terms of multiple times with the cervix being artificially opened, right? And somehow, some way, through that process, after 2 or 3, 4 times, it's affected the body to where it's permanent damage to the physiological part, where ultimately the cervix can't open up in a natural birth, okay? To which I'm wondering if that's what happened to ShaMay. She said that there would have been signs in terms of bleeding or something. She knows one possibility that could provoke that. But I don't think she knows everything, right? And you know, this is more reason to be able to provide a better scope of medical files and information and cross-reference to be able to put the puzzle together. Because it's a puzzle where some of these sneaks have hidden certain pieces, and like as in trying to sweep them under the rug, and if they think they can destroy them, they'll do that too, as they destroy you to keep it covered up, right? I don't know what kind of lawyer this is. So anyway, that's all resulted from what I read here, right? So what was the point? Just told, but you told the lawyer, the doctors never told you that the MRI never showed he was a drug baby. No, not one doctor has ever come to me and say it is drugs, that this specific drug, I don't know what drug they want to pull out of the hat here. They could pull 1 drug, 2 drugs, 10 drugs, it wouldn't matter. Whatever drug they pull out of the hat, this is the drug that caused Amari to have all this frontal brain damage. And it probably occurred, probably, not definitely, because they would never fucking know. So there is no burden of proof there, though, is there? It's just the doctor's word over our word, right? But it probably occurred within the 6-week gestation. Being that ShaMay admitted to doing drugs within the first 3 months of her trimester. She admitted. She wasn't like Sierra, where she was doing drugs every day, and it was a multiple mixture of different kinds of drugs as long as Sierra got a hit, right? Compared to maybe, what do they call that, recreational use with ShaMay. So where is the drug that created it? And at what gestation did it happen? And how does the MRI explain that to be true? Assuming that any doctor ever said that to me, to which they didn't. They just have to make the suggestion. Well, it says right here she admitted to doing drugs, so therefore that's why Amari is the way he is. No. No. Oh, he's up to something here. What are you doing? Look, you're doing that again. Stop it. No, you're making it hard for Nana. You're making it hard. Stop it. Boy, oh boy. No, look, you do that over there. You're getting too strong. No, you're getting too strong. Too big for your britches. Oh, lordy, lordy. It's just because he's getting strong and he's rambunctious. They're pulling the freaking blanket on himself. I could hear it, right? His noise changed. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So that's what we're trying to determine here. If it was drugs and what type of drugs and at what time of the fucking year, gestation period, did this drug do this to Amari? Because if you want to say that is what the reason is, then provide me the proof and tell me what drug needs to be taken off the market, assuming that it wasn't some freaking doctor that maybe prescribed it to her. How about that? Ooh, the doctors have been telling you this the whole time, laughing out loud. Anyway, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I just want to be on top of my game and know what this woman is getting, with at least within the first initial stages of what I've got. And then anything else that she gets, if she decides to take on this case on behalf of Amari, right, and his family. First it's Mari, and then it's his family, right? Then we have that base comparison where if we're talking on the phone, we can just simply reference whatever it is that we're talking about when it comes to my shit. And I don't have to waste this woman's time. And the more information that she gets from me that's legitimate, the more empowered she will be to do a better job. Whether she does it for me and Amari and the family or whatever she gains from it, just in terms of that knowledge, and she comes into contact with another family that's dealing with similar situations, and she's already put that shit in her hippocampus and stored it into her long-term memory, so when she needs it, it's right there. Right there. It's just I'm overwhelmed with it because, you know, I'm under pressure now. And I don't want to disappoint her and not give to her what she needs fast enough. But that's me feeling insecure, right? So, I'm going to take the easy path. I'm going to find Andre's medical files, to which... Oh my Lord. You don't know, it all looks the same, people. It all looks the same. It all looks the same. What's this big ass binder bag here? I don't even know. Lots though. Look. I don't even know. Let me see. Tisha's medical files. Oh. There you go. I got Tisha to get me her medical files. So, maybe what we'll do right? I'll talk to Tisha, and we'll take out the part of her C-section from the time that it was instigated to the time it was over with, and we'll add that in to the first initial mail-in, so that this lawyer has now 3 C-sections to analyze and compare in terms of how things happen and how they're documented on these forms, assuming that they even document them, because when they want to not add them in, they don't. Because when I got my medical files, you know, I beelined right to the point where I was giving birth to Tisha because it was so traumatic. And I read what they wrote, and nowhere in there do they indicate that there was trauma and that I was practically flying off the fucking bed, right? With that woman trying to keep Tisha in my vagina versus from flying out of it because of the heaving. Nowhere in my medical files is that written down. So they covered it up. Yeah. So now it becomes my word against their word, even though if I was to go to a doctor and have him give me a pap test, the doctor's going to tell me that even after all these years, my uterus is still tilted as a result of that one act, which basically sterilized me. The only thing is, I was tired and I didn't want any more kids. I already had 5. And I was pooped. I was too busy just taking care of what I brought into the world, and I gave up on sex pretty much altogether. Yeah. Yeah. The one time that I had sex with Tisha's dad after Tisha was born, it was painful as a result of my uterus being tilted. And I said, fuck it, who has time for this shit? I got 5 kids and Uncle John that I have to look after. And by then, you know, life was life, and I just went on and did what mothers do. And I didn't care about sex anymore. It was too much of a hassle for what it was worth, you know. Right? So, point is, I was injured while giving birth, and it was covered up in my medical files. And if they do it once, they do it again. And if they think they can do it again, they'll do it again and again. So I'm glad I had this conversation, because I think this doctor needs to look at little ShaMay's medical files as well, in terms of whatever they've got there for Tisha with her C-section, because it was an emergency C-section as a result of some test that they gave Tisha before she was to go in and proceed with birthing a child. And a little ShaMay, you know, we don't know yet. We just don't know yet, people. Right? So here, I'll show you. You're welcome to my office. Right? What can I say?